You're tired of one wheel peel in your 14 bolt GM. Well, this might be the solution for you. Now, this truck behind you is not a off-road dedicated vehicle. It is a farm truck, so it is off-road often, but not for rock crawling or anything like that. Generally, we're pulling trailers, and one wheel peel makes it very difficult to get hay out of fields, and also it makes it difficult to feed hay. So we're gonna try out the Torq Master's Torque Locker. Now this one again is specifically for the 14 bolt GM. In this case, we're installing it on an OBS Chevy. The part number is TL-11935. Let's get started. Step one, of course, we're gonna start draining this fluid out. That way it's out of our way and we can start pulling the axles out while it's draining. Now this fluid obviously doesn't look very good, which isn't a good thing because we just changed it roughly about 4,000 miles ago, but there was a lot of moisture in this rear end whenever we did it. So hoping that everything still looks okay. It looked okay before, just about. All right, we'll let that drain out and we'll get these axles out real quick.
Assholes?
Axles. If you can avoid it, keep your wife out of the shop while you're doing this. Next step is we need to take the axles out. So removing these bolts right here on the end of the axle, because this is a full floating axle, will allow us to be able to pull the axle out and get it out of the carrier. That's gonna make a mess. Now remember how we talked about earlier that we have changed this fluid about 3 months ago and roughly 3,000 miles? Well, you can see that there's still good fluid in there. You can see it right here, but you can tell that it still has been mixed with moisture. There was a lot of moisture in there when we changed it. So it's actually gonna work out well that we're gonna pull these axles out. It'll allow us to get almost all of the oil out, so the chances of it contaminating the next batch of oil, much less. I don't believe I need to show you, but we're gonna do the exact same thing to the other side. 5:15 in the morning comes really early, so I think you all understand. I'm gonna take a break tonight. However, tomorrow when we come back, we're gonna mark all of these. Now, this is probably the most important part of it. If we mark all these right, and we get everything actually marked so we can put it back in the exact same spot we found it, this will make it to where we don't have any problems with gear lash, and we shouldn't have any funny noises coming from the rear end. If we don't get that done and we do it wrong, we are gonna have problems. There's no probably about it. You're gonna have problems. It may not be that day, but in the near future, you will have problems. So make sure that you take this seriously. Get all these surfaces cleaned off. Clean them with brake cleaner if you can. Be careful because you don't want the brake cleaner to get into your bearings. That's obviously bad for them. Even though you're gonna have oil that gets filled back in there shortly thereafter, we still wanna do our best to keep any sort of brake cleaner or degreaser out of the bearings. So get that all cleaned up and I'll see you tomorrow after work. We have our north-south markings, so up and down on our right-hand side, and then we have east-west markings on the left-hand side or the driver's side. When I take all this stuff out, I'm gonna lay it out on a table and it'll be very simple for me to see what went where. And it's also gonna make it very simple for me to know what goes where when I put it back together. Again, we wanna make sure that we put everything back in the exact same place that we took it from, and also as close to the same pressures as we possibly can. These bolts are going to be a 13/16, both of top and bottom. And then your your retainer bolts that go in here, they're a 1/2 inch. I think you'll be able to tell. I have remarked this with a permanent marker. The wax pencil just, it was marked, but not well, and I want to make sure I can see this easily. So just so you know, on the passenger side, pulling this down is going to loosen it. So we're tighten it. Essentially, you're going to tighten it into the axle shaft, or sorry, the axle tube there. Okay, so we're good on that side. And then we're gonna do the same thing on this side, which I'm gonna guess we gotta go up. Yep, we do. So I'm gonna go, whoops, I'm gonna go one full turn on both. That way, there's no confusion about how far back I need to go when I put it back in. Ooh. Okay. The next step, we're going to remove all these outer bolts, and essentially it's going to take the ring gear away from the carrier, and it's also going to allow us to open the carrier up. You will need a 3/4 inch socket. Before I take this apart, I forgot to mention, we're going to mark this so that we know we put it back in the same orientation. In this case, I only need to mark one spot because it's impossible if you can't put it on backwards, because if you did, you know, you can't. It's very simple. The flat side of the ring gear has to go against the carrier, and then if you mark the carrier right here where they're separate, very simple. Should be able to just lift this off. If not, we may need to grab, oops. Oh, have to clean that off. There we go. All right, again, we've marked it right here. So those markings, obviously it has to line up with this pin. All that's gonna be in your box is these two pieces and the springs. Now that you've gotten to this point where everything's open, we're going to remove the top. So in our case, this is our top gear because of how we have it set. We're gonna set this one aside because we're gonna use it again. We're going to remove the cross pin. And then from there, we will not need any of these spider gears. So we're gonna take, oopsie. We're gonna take all those spider gears out. Set that right there for the moment. We are going to take one side of this, doesn't matter which side, and we're gonna set it on to our gear that's in the bottom here. Let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better. You're not gonna see my bright shining face anymore, but this is the cross pin that we have left from the spider gears we've removed. We're gonna take one piece, doesn't matter which, and we're gonna set it on here. We're gonna make sure it lines up on the grooves of the spider gear that's in there. So I think you can see it right there. But make sure it's in there and lined up, and then from there, what we're gonna do, we'll line this back up real quick. All right, we've got that in there, lined up. We're gonna take our springs, we're gonna put two of the springs in, as you see, in those two holes that are on the bottom part of the locker. And then we're gonna take the other two springs, maybe, we're gonna set them in. On this, we're gonna hold them so they can't fall out with our finger, and then we're gonna set them in the same manner. All right, all of our springs are in, everything's in place, great. Now we will take the top spider gear and we'll put it back. We're gonna use our thrust washer. Everything is gonna be reused from the side gears. That's actually why I didn't even take the bottom side gear out, mainly because it's subjective. What I think is good, you may say, I don't care because it's an off-road vehicle, or I don't care because I just want to get this locker in and use it. I'm not going to go through inspecting all those things because that is something you need to do, and whatever you're comfortable with, you can run. We've got this back in here now. So from here, we're going to take this. We're going to find our marks, which are somewhere around here. There they are. Finger. I'm gonna line this back up. There you go. You can't, like I said, you really can't mess it up because it's not gonna allow you. As mentioned, we have all these started now. I'm gonna go in a crisscross pattern. So from this side to this side, this side to this side, this side to this side, all the way around until we have them all tight. All those are tight. We're ready to throw it back in. Now that we have everything ready as far as the carrier goes, we're ready to put it back in. Now remember, we turned these both one full rotation to loosen them up in order to get the carrier out. So we're going to do the opposite. We're going to turn them one full rotation to tighten it to put it back in. Okay. All right. Got that on there. I happen to have my screwdriver in my pocket. Everything is adjusted back to where it was. We're going to put our caps on now. This is all back in. Backlash seems to be the same to me. Everything is tightened. All of our marks are lined back up. That's exactly what we're looking for. Next, we're going to put our axle shafts back in. And then, once we get that done, we'll be ready to test this. Axle shafts are in temporarily. I didn't put it all the way together just in case there was something else I needed to address. So now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to spin. I've already locked the, now in my case it's a manual truck, so I actually have it in gear. I don't have to worry about the drive shaft spinning. What it says to do is to rotate this tire, or a tire, until it locks. So now that it's locked, right? Now that that's locked, we're going to go over here and then we're going to spin it backwards. That should unlock it. Now we need to do the same thing from this other side. Now we're going to rotate it the other way, and then it should be locked. Yep, so if I was trying to go backwards, both tires are wanting to go with it. Now if I wanted to unlock it, same thing. Good. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. So I want to go forward, so it's locked. You can see it grabbed. This one's grabbed with it. I can't get it to do anything different. But let's see what happens whenever we start turning backwards. Yep, we're good to go. And then one more time, we're going to go backwards with it. So now that this is, I was hoping there was a window in here, but there's not. Now that we're going backwards on this one, it should be locked. Yep, both locked. Now if I try to go forward with this one though, it'll click like it's supposed to. Now that clicking is kind of loud. It should be much quieter once we put the cover on and fill it with oil. Also, once the cover is on and it's filled with oil, the microphone, or your ears in this case, won't be right next to it, so it won't seem nearly as loud. Since we're done testing, I'm going to go ahead and remove my axles because they need to have some seal behind them, or some sealant. I don't have seals. This was actually RTV'd before, and I'm going to do the same thing again, just like my cover. So we are 5 days into driving this truck with the new locker installed. I have absolutely no difference in drivability. It feels the exact same, drives the same, doesn't sound any different, nothing's weird. The only thing that's changed is that whenever you're actually on, say, a gravel road, if you were going up a hill or whatever starting out and you floor it, you're not spinning one tire, it's every time it's both tires. The other thing is that if I have one wheel, you know, say in the grass or in the mud, because our roads are kind of narrow, one tire being off on a slick surface, that tire is not just spinning and we're sitting still, it's actually transferring power and locking the differential like it's supposed to. So I have absolutely no complaints. Here's a couple of clips so you guys can hear what it sounds like when you're driving down the road as far as if it makes a clicking noise or not. I don't believe it does. I can't hear it in the cab at least. I haven't been outside the truck whenever, you know, obviously I'm driving it, so I'm not outside of it. But if I ever roll the windows down, I still don't hear any clicking noises or anything like that. So I'll let you be the judge though. So thanks for watching. I hope that install video was helpful, and enjoy it. I know I'm gonna enjoy it. This is actually the first truck I've ever had that didn't have a factory G80 locker, and man, you know, getting stuck on little wet grass or anything like that, especially when you have a trailer, especially if the trailer's empty, because then it's even worse, because there's not really a lot of weight on the truck from the trailer, because they're gooseneck trailers. Just aggravating. So I'm glad to have that aggravation behind me, and I hope you guys found the video useful and informative. So thanks for watching. If you're gonna talk about somebody, talk to God about them. Have a blessed week. See you next time.